My name is Alex Yore. I'm an undergraduate electrical engineering student at San Francisco State University, and I'm also minoring in physics, which is where my research is. So for my research, we're studying these very low-dimensional materials because the current state of electronics is quite small. I mean, you'd think about there's millions and millions of transistors, little electronic devices inside your phone. But what we can do is actually make these devices even smaller. We can pack more of them into a smaller area, and what that means is we can have greater computing power with much smaller size scale. We can also do things like flexible displays, screens that could wrap around a surface or could actually be, placed right on a wall that's, paper thin. So there was a moment I was actually driving through the plains of Wyoming, and this is my little romantic tale of how I ended up in materials. And so we're driving down the plains of Wyoming, and there's this awesome thunderstorm going on, and the lightning strikes were just so close. You could just see them. You just see them hit the ground, and it was incredible. And it really hit me like that kind of lightning bolt that I wanted to study materials that transfer energy. And how does that work? What are we doing there? And it wasn't directly related. I'm not trying to harness lightning or anything like that. But that was sort of that aha moment that I recall, is that literal flash of lightning that made me think, how can we exploit these kind of things? How can we really store energy? How can we use energy more effectively? Things like that is what really got me into it. And it seemed like starting at the atomic, the material, how do we actually make these devices, that seemed like the place to go. I had lived in Portland, Oregon for several years. I went to community college there. I had some friends that actually moved from up there down to the Bay Area. And I was visiting one of my friends at one point, and she said, well, why don't you just move here? And kind of like that lightning flash, it just sort of hit me upside the head, said, yeah, why don't I move down here? And so I started, contemplating it and thinking about it. I was already thinking about getting back into school, and so I ended up moving to San Francisco, and this was the place. I mean, they have the research, they have science, they have the engineering department, and I couldn't, ask for anywhere better. So I decided to enter this competition, mostly at the behest of my advisor, actually. I mean, it's been an incredibly busy semester, so had he not pushed me to do it, I may not have actually entered it. But when I had actually submitted the application and started thinking about doing it, I got really excited about it, because it was sort of a chance to force myself to really dig in and understand this material and what does it mean. I did all this work. We did all this imaging and processing and all this analysis, but without having any sort of way to express it at that point. And so this was a great chance to sort of express that research. We're waiting on publication at the moment, so this was a great step in between where I got to actually present the research, get some feedback, talk to some people, actually see people in the field and present it to them and get some questions and things like that, and actually help me to understand it more critically. I didn't know what to expect. When we went in there, I didn't know what other people's research was like. I didn't realize just how many schools were going to be there. I think there's 23 or something CSUs, and most of them were represented at the competition. So my first impressions were just kind of a little bit of awe. It's like, wow, there are a lot of people, and things were nice and organized, and they had everybody going where they needed to go. And we actually went as sort of a group. All of our SF State students, we all sort of stuck together, and so we were able to sort of see it from a group perspective without feeling alone. I think we developed a very close camaraderie during that trip. I don't think any of us really knew each other that well prior to the trip, but I felt like we really bonded and really had a great time together. And again, doing the sort of group approach where we would go to each other's, I think helped kind of build that sort of team spirit, if you will. And it was a really incredible experience, and I feel like we all grew closer together. We're all in contact with each other now, so it's great, and it gives you a chance to collaborate across disciplines. You know, we had somebody in design and industry and biological sciences and anthropology, and so these very disparate fields were able to sort of come together and work as a team, which I thought was really great. I didn't really expect to win. I didn't really know what I was up against, but I thought my category had already passed. I believe it was actually the grad students that had been awarded at that point, and so I thought it had already passed. But then they said physical and mathematical sciences, and they said SF State. I said, well, I'm the only one in that category, and then they said my name, and that was it. So it was a really great feeling. Win or lose, it was just a great experience. I mean, the camaraderie that was built across disciplines between all of our SF State groups, the chance to see what other people are doing, you know, within your discipline and in other disciplines, and, you know, the chance to travel, the chance to actually have to present your research to people who are going to ask you critical questions about it. I mean, that's the kind of experience you can't get. No matter how many times you practice your presentation in front of the mirror, getting some question that you would have never thought of, it's an incredible experience, because even if you don't know the answer, it's going to stick in the back of your mind, and you're going to think about it, and you're going to want to come up with an answer, you know, because if you're at the point where you're entering some kind of competition like this, if you're doing research, you're probably already inquisitive, you probably already want to understand your field better, and so this is a great chance to get questions that you may not have thought of. One, it was just the experience that I gained from it, the fact that I can say, hey, I won this research competition. I mean, I think that says something. This is a statewide research competition against, you know, 20 some odd other schools within my discipline. I think that, you know, that definitely says something, and just that added experience, that boost of confidence that, wow, okay, I can actually do this. I can accomplish this, and I can sort of grow and move forward in my field. My parents are actually did not go to college, so I'm the first in my family to go to college. So I lived in Portland for several years. I actually grew up in Michigan. So I grew up in the Midwest. You know, I grew up with my grandparents actually. You know, my grandfather worked in a forklift factory, and my grandmother worked in she worked in the federal building in Michigan. So they, you know, they weren't educated, but there was a lot of love, and they were always supportive of whatever I wanted to do, and they were very helpful. Just having that, you know, having somebody believe in you, I think really makes a big difference. Whether they could offer the sort of academic support that wasn't really there, but they always were, you know, they're always very encouraging, and I think that really made a big difference in how I was able to accomplish what I've been able to thus far. Yeah, so Professor Nuaz, actually my faculty advisor here in this lab, has been incredibly supportive, and so I've actually been with him pretty much since he started at SF State, which was just over a year ago. So I joined his lab right after he got here. I'm not even sure how I found out about him. I think I was just kind of searching around on the physics department website for some reason and saw, oh, there's this new faculty member studying, you know, low dimensional materials, studying graphene, which is the one that, you know, at that point that was the only one that I had heard of these low dimensional materials, and that's the one that people talk about in these kind of circles. That's the one you hear the most about. And so I saw somebody was doing something with that, so I went and talked to him. He was, you know, I think as a new faculty member, he's anxious to get people in his lab, so right away he said, join the lab, okay, and that was great. And ever since then, you know, he's definitely been pushing me to do more, to do this research competition, for instance, which I probably wouldn't have done without him pushing me to do it. He's been really supportive on working on fellowship funding for when I go to grad school. He's helping me out with the NSF fellowship that they offer, and he's been incredibly supportive throughout this whole process in just over a year that I've been here.